Good day, everyone. Welcome to lecture number 6 of Theory of Computation. And in this particular theory, we will start the discussion about the computability theory. Okay, so we have to discuss the computability theory. But first, we have to understand what we are going to do in a computability theory. We know that in computability theory, we have to discuss what problems can be solved by a computer. What problems can be solved with a computer? Okay, so this is the question that we will be trying to answer in our computability theory. But to answer this particular question, we have to first understand two important concepts here. One is that this computer, and another is this problem. So what I mean to say here, that we have to know what kind of computer, because there are infinitely different types of computers. So we have to know what type of computer we are speaking about. Okay, the other thing that we have to understand, what kind of problems, what kind of problems. So we should first know what kind of computer we are speaking about, and we should also know what kind of problems we are speaking about. When we are saying what problems can be solved with a computer, because there can be a problem which can be solved on one computer and cannot be solved on the other computer. Let's see, for example, there is some problem. In our subsequent lectures, we will understand this statement in great detail, but we should understand, when we are discussing the solution of a problem, we should discuss it related to a specific kind of a computer, or you can say a computing device. So that means, when we have to answer this particular question, what problems can be solved with a computer, we have to understand the structure of this particular machine. So we should know the design, or we can say structure of a computing device. Then only we can understand what problems the computing device can solve and what problems it cannot solve. So we have to discuss the structure of a computing device. But you know that a computing device, any computing device, it is a complex hardware. Okay, so to understand the structure of every computer, we have to understand it is hardware. Here I mean to say, we have to understand its caches, it is register files, its control unit, its execution unit, and many different components of a computing device. So understanding a computing device is a complex task. Why it is a complex task? Because our modern computers are messy. Messy means they have tremendous amount of hardware integrated together to form a computer. So it is very difficult to understand the structure of a computing device. So instead of understanding the computing device, let's simplify this task. What I mean to say, that instead of studying about this complex hardware of computers, in order to answer this particular question, let's simplify the computing device. Okay, simplify the computing device means, let's make a mathematical model of a computing device. Of a computing device. So what I am saying that since we have to understand the structure of a computer, and I said that computers are messy, they are complex hardwares, it is very difficult to understand the structure of a computing device. So to simplify this task, let's do a one thing, that is let's make a mathematical model of a computing device. Okay, let's make this model. So this mathematical model, this particular mathematical model, it will not only represent one computing device, but it will be a representation of huge number of real computers. So one mathematical model can represent huge number of real computers. So understanding one mathematical model means that you have been able to understand the structure of huge number of real computers. Okay. Another thing that is the advantage of mathematical modeling or building the model is that we can easily manipulate these models. Now let's say if you have to manipulate a computing device, a real computing device, so that means you have to manipulate it as hardware. And manipulating a hardware is a very difficult task. But manipulating a mathematical model is an easy task. You have to do some mathematical manipulations and you will get a new mathematical model of a computing device. So that means this mathematical model has the advantage. First advantage is that one mathematical model is representing huge number of computers. That is the first advantage. And we can easily manipulate these models. Because of these two advantages, so the advantage of representing a huge number of computers and the advantage of easily manipulating these mathematical models, so we are going to discuss about these mathematical models. So instead of understanding a computing device, or we can say a computer, we will understand a mathematical model. Okay, so we are going to understand this mathematical model of a computing device. And the mathematical model of a computing device is called automaton. So what is an automaton? An automaton is a mathematical model of a computing device. So that means to answer this particular question, what problems can be solved with a computer, we should first understand what is an automaton. Okay, and it is plural is automaton is plural is automata. Okay, so when you are saying automaton means a single mathematical model, and when you are saying an automata means multiple automatons. Okay, so the mathematical model of a computing device is called an automaton, and its plural is automata. And in this course, in the computability theory, we have to understand this automata. What is an automata? Okay, so when we are able to understand this automata, then only we can answer this particular question, what problems can be solved with a computer. But Before answering this question, so let's say we have understood the concept of automata. We should understand what kind of problems we are talking about, or we can say what is a problem, how we design a problem such that we can say whether it is solved on one particular automata or not, or whether that particular automata can solve that particular problem or not. So we have to understand the concept of a problem. Okay, so what I am saying that we will understand the concept of a problem and we will understand the concept of an automata. Then only we can answer the question what problems can be solved with a computer. Instead of a computer, we will answer what problems can be solved with one particular mathematical model, or we can say one particular automata. Okay, so let me rub this particular portion here and let me summarize. So what I am saying here that instead of discussing about a computer, we will make a mathematical model of a computer, or we can say mathematical model of a computing device. Okay, and this particular, or we can say this mathematical model of a computing device, in general it is called automata. Okay, and in this particular course, in the computability theory section, we will discuss two different kinds of automatas. One is finite automata, or we can say the finite mathematical model. This is the first one. And the second one that we will be discussing will be Turing machines. These are the two different types of automata that we are going to cover in the computability theory section. So this finite automata, we can say it is an abstraction, or in other words, you can say it is a mathematical model. It is an abstraction of a real computer, with finite memory, or we can say with finite resources. So finite automata is an abstraction of a computing device, or we can say it is a mathematical model of a computing device with finite resources. Okay, and using this particular automata, or you can say using this particular mathematical model, we can provide the upper bound upper bound upper bound for the computing machines that we can build. So that means if we are to make a finite automata, any finite automata, if we are able to make a mathematical model, then it is evident that we can make a real computing device mimicking that mathematical model. And if we are not able to make a finite automata for some particular problem, that means we cannot design a real computing machine for that particular for that particular automata, or we can say for solving that particular problem. So finite automata, as I said, that it is an abstraction of a computer with finite resources, and this finite automata, this mathematical model, it provides an upper bound for the computing machines that we can build. Okay, so they provide an upper bound for the computing machines that we can build. This is about the finite automata. Now, Turing machines, you can see that they are the abstraction of computers, but computers with unbounded resources, means then infinite resources. In the real sense, it is not possible, okay, having unbounded resources. So Turing machines are abstractions of computers with unbounded resources. And they provide an upper bound for could what we could ever hope to accomplish. So these mathematical models, Turing machine based mathematical models, they are the mathematical models that have unbounded resources. And they are mathematical models of computing devices that we can think of building. So we have not built those machines yet, but they provide the upper bound. What is the possibility? So for example, if I have some problem and I have to check whether this problem can be solved or not. Then if I am able to design a Turing machine mathematical model for that problem to solve that problem, that means that there is possibility to solve that problem. And if we are not able to design a Turing machine for that particular problem, that means we won't be able to solve that problem. So these Turing machines, they are mathematical models with unbounded resources, and they provide an upper bound for what we could ever hope to accomplish. What is the possibility? So that means if we are not able to make a Turing machine based mathematical model, that means we won't be able to make a computer, not today and not in the future, to model that particular problem. Okay, so these are the two types of automatas that we will be discussing in the computability theory. So first is the finite automata and second is the Turing machines. In the finite automatas, we have different types of finite automatas: deterministic finite automata, we have non-deterministic finite automata, we have push down automata, and many more automatas that we have to discuss in the finite automata section. Okay, and likewise we have to discuss different types of Turing machines in the Turing machine section. So we have to discuss these two different types of mathematical models to understand the type of computer. Okay, so that means to understand this computer, what kind of a computer, we have to understand these things. And the second thing that we have to understand is this problem. So what is a problem, or we can say what kind of problems we are discussing. Okay, so when I will be saying that I have to see if I can solve this particular problem on a computer, or we can say on a mathematical model, we should know what is a problem and how we can test a problem on a mathematical model. And to understand the concept of the problem, or we can say what kind of problem is, we have to understand the formal language theory. So first I said, to understand the computers, we have to understand the mathematical model of a computing device. And to understand the problem is, we have to understand the formal language theory. So let me first discuss the basics, some basics related to the formal language theory. And by discussing the basics of this language theory, we will understand the concept of problems. And then after understanding the concept of problems, we will start the discussion about the first mathematical model, and that is finite automata. So let me rub these things here and let's start formal language theory, in which we will understand the concept or the design of a problem. Okay, so let me rub this portion here, but you have to keep in mind that this formal language theory, we will only discuss this in next 10 or 15 minutes maximum. The remaining portion of the formal language theory, we will cover everything in the formal language theory when we go across through the lectures, through the subsequent lectures, and different portions related to the formal language theory, we will discuss those things when the time comes. Okay, so here we will only briefly discuss some portions related to the understanding of the design of a problem. So let me rub this particular portion here and let's start the discussion about the formal language theory. So in the formal language theory, we have to understand what is a language. Okay, or we can say what is a formal language. So to understand the formal language, we have to first understand alphabet. What is an alphabet? Okay, so in formal language theory, an alphabet is a non-empty set of characters, or we can say it is a non-empty set of symbols, and it is denoted by this sigma. Okay, so what is an alphabet? An alphabet is a non-empty set of characters or symbols. For example, so you can see, for example, this is a set, and let's say it has two symbols. One symbol is 1 and the other symbol is 2. So these are the two symbols. So this is an alphabet set, or we can say this is an alphabet. The another alphabet, you can design it like this. For example, it has two members, A and B, or we can say two symbols, A and B. So it is called an alphabet. So what is an alphabet? Alphabet is any set that is a set of characters or symbols. Fine. And as I said, that alphabet is denoted by a sigma. Then after alphabet, we have to understand what is a string. Okay, we can say a string is a finite sequence of characters, or we can say finite sequence of symbols. So instead of characters, you can say symbols drawn from an alphabet. So symbol is drawn from an alphabet. For example, let's say this is our alphabet set. So how many symbols are there? 0 and 1. Now, if I make a finite sequence of characters from using these symbols from this particular set. So what is a finite sequence? For example, this is the sequence 0001. So it is, sorry, 0000. It is one sequence. Okay, and it contains symbols or characters from this alphabet. Other sequences, this is the other sequence. Okay, so this is a string, this is also a string. So both are strings. So these are strings over alphabet sigma, this sigma 0 and 1, or we can say this is a string over alphabet 0, 1. Can I say that this is a string over this alphabet? So this is also an alphabet, for example, this. Can I say that this is a string over this alphabet? No, I cannot say. Why? Because a string will be called a sequence of characters on this particular alphabet if these symbols belong to this alphabet. So since here symbols are A and B, but here symbols are zeros. So this is a string over this particular set, but this is not a string over this alphabet set. Okay, so I can make a string over this alphabet set. For example, one string is this. This is string. Another string is this. So these are strings over this alphabet set. Why over this alphabet set? Because this string contains characters that belong to this alphabet. And this particular string, for example, this is string. Okay, this is a string over this particular alphabet set, 0, comma. So what is a string? A string is a finite sequence of characters or symbols drawn from an alphabet. Fine. So I will rub some portion here to make some space. So we understood the concept of an alphabet. So alphabet is a non-empty set of characters. And as I said that it is denoted by sigma. And the other thing we discussed is a string. A string is a finite sequence of characters or symbols drawn from an alphabet. Okay. And there is one special string that is called an empty string. Empty string means it does not contain any alphabet. So it is denoted by this epsilon or this symbol. Okay. So this means an empty string. So let's take an alphabet set. For example, this is an alphabet set. Let's say it has these symbols, for example. So what are the possible? The question is, what are the possible strings over this alphabet set? So what are the possible strings? Can you design what are the possible strings? The first string is this empty string. Another string is A. Another string is B. Another string is A. Another string is AB. Another string is BB. Another is BA. BAA. AAAB. BAAB. So how many strings are there? There are infinite number of strings over this alphabet set. Okay, so on this alphabet set you can design infinite number of strings, and the set of all strings over sigma is denoted by sigma star. So what is sigma star? So if I have sigma, okay, sigma is, let's say, 0, 1. Then what will be sigma star? Sigma star means I can write it like this, 0, 1 star. So what is sigma star? Sigma star is the set, since we include it here, set of all possible strings over sigma. Okay. The set of all possible strings over sigma is denoted by sigma star. Now, what is sigma 0? Sigma 0 means set of strings of length 0. Okay. What is sigma 1? Sigma 1 means set of strings of length 1 over sigma. So what will be sigma 0? It will be this empty string, because there is only empty string that has length 0. What will be sigma 1? Sigma 1 will be this particular set. So only two strings, A and B. A string, it is length is 1. B is also a string, it is also length is 1. For example, now what will be sigma 2? Sigma 2 will be set of all strings of length 2. So sorry, here sigma is our 0, 1, so it will be 0 and it will be 1. So what is the set using these two symbols? What are the strings of length 2? The possible strings are 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Is there any possible string using these symbols that has length 2? No. Simply length 3. You can make a set, okay, dash, 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 you can make sigma n. Sigma n means set of all strings over 0, 1 of length n. Okay. And from this you can also see, so let me rub this portion here. So from this particular portion, if you come here, if you can see, so sigma star is the set of all possible strings. That means sigma 0 is subset of sigma star. Sigma 1 is also subset of sigma star, or we can say sigma n is also subset of sigma star. In other words, we can say sigma star is equal to union of all sigma n such that n running from 0 to, let's say, n running from 0 to any value n. Sorry, here n, we will write I, where I is running from 0 to n. So it is the union of all possible strings. Okay. So let me rub this portion here and summarize the things. So an alphabet is a finite non-empty set of symbols, and as I said, that alphabet is denoted by sigma, and string is a finite sequence of characters drawn from an alphabet. Okay, and we also said that sigma star is the set of all possible strings over sigma, and sigma n means set of all strings of length n over sigma. Okay, set of all possible strings over sigma, and sigma n is the set of all strings of length n over sigma. And we also said that this is a special string which is called an empty string, and its length is 0. Fine. Now we have to understand what is a language, or we can say what is a formal language. Formal language. Okay. A formal language is a set of strings, or we can say we have to say a formal language or alphabet sigma is the set of strings, okay, set of strings over sigma. For example, sigma is our, let's say it is an alphabet 0 1. Now let's make a set, any set. For example, this is one set of strings. So this is a set and it contains some strings. It is not necessary all strings. It contains some strings over alphabet. So this will be called a language over sigma. Okay. So what is a formal language? Formal language is a set of strings over sigma. Or we can say any subset, any subset of sigma star is a language. Any subset of sigma star is a language. So there are two different methods of describing a formal language. So what is a formal language? A language is a set of strings, or we can say it is any subset of sigma star. Okay? Or we can write, let's suppose L is a language over this alphabet sigma, then we can write L is a subset of sigma star. So what is an L? So L is a formal language, and a formal language is a set of strings. So how many formal languages are possible? There are infinite number of formal languages. Fine. So there are infinite number of formal languages in the while discussing the formal language theory. Okay, so let me wrap this some portion here and let me discuss this. Let me write this in clear terms. What is a formal language? It is a set of strings over sigma, or we can say it is any subset of sigma star, or any subset of sigma star is called a language. So any set of strings is called a language, or we can say is called a formal language. Now let's say we have a language, any language, L. So L is a set of strings. L is a set of strings. Now if we have to answer this particular question, I have some string, I have some string, any string, let's say S1. I have this string. Okay. So if I have a string, I have some string, can I design, can I design an automaton that can answer the following question. So what is the question? The question is does S1 belong to L? Is S1 a part of this language? Does S1 belong to this set? So let's say this is my language, L is equal to, this is some language. Now if I have a string S1, does S1 belong to L? Yes. So answer is yes. So let's say I have another question. I have another string. Does S2 belong to L? The answer is no. Okay. So here I am showing a small example. Now we want to design an automaton, or we can say design a mathematical model that can answer this type of question. What type of question? Does a string belong to a language? So this type of question, or we can say this type of problem, we have to answer, or we have to solve this type of problem using an automata. Okay, so in so at the beginning we said we have to understand a problem that we are going to solve using these automaton, or because our question was, can we solve a problem using a computer? Okay, so instead of computer we said an automaton. Automaton means a mathematical model. Now our question was, can we solve a problem using an automaton? Okay, then we said what kind of problem, and the kind of problem that we will be discussing is this kind of problem. Does a string belong to a language? Or we can say, can we design an automaton that will tell us whether a string, some string is a part of some language? Or we can say, does some string belong to a language? So this is the problem, or these kind of problems we will be discussing in this particular course, and we will solve these problems using the automata. So let me formalize this, but before that, I will rub some portion from here. So our question was, can we solve a problem using a computer? And we said that instead of a computer, we will replace this computer with an automaton. So that means we have to understand the automaton. And for a problem, we said that we have to find what kind of problem. Okay. And the problem is we have to find out whether whether sorry some string belongs to a language. So string can be any string and language can be any language. So the answer to this particular question, it depends on the type of language, because there may be different infinite number of languages. So it depends upon the type of language, and it also depends upon the automaton, because there may be some automaton that may answer this particular question for some languages, and it may not be able to answer for other languages. So we may have an automaton that can answer this particular question for one type of language, and there may be an automaton for which it won't be able to answer, or we can say there will be a language for which this particular automaton won't be able to answer this particular question. For example, what I am saying here, that let's say we have, let's say, automata 1 and we have automata 2. So this is a different automata, this is a different automata, and this automata is able to answer this particular problem for some languages, for some languages, and those languages may have some characteristics, and this automata is able to answer this particular type of question for some other language. Okay, then this will be a group of languages for which this automata will work, and this will be the group of languages for which this automata will work. Okay, so that means we have different classes of languages, classes of languages, and accordingly we have different classes of automata, and we have to discuss all different classes of automaton and all different classes of languages, and we have to see what kind of automata is able to answer questions for what kind of language, and what kind of automata is able to answer for what different kinds of language. So we have to understand different classes of language, and we have to understand different classes of automata. Okay, so we will discuss different models of automata, and accordingly we will have different languages. So if somebody asks you a question why there are different classes of automaton, and the answer is simple, that one kind of automaton is able to answer this particular query for one kind of language, and the same automaton won't be able to answer this question for different kinds of language. So that is why we require a different kind of automaton. Okay, fine. So this completes our discussion, some basic discussion about understanding this particular question. So that means in this particular question, to answer this particular question, we have to first understand a problem, and we have already understood this problem to some extent, and we have to understand this automaton. What is an automaton? And our aim is to discuss the different classes of automatons, and accordingly we will discuss different classes of languages. So before wrapping up this particular lecture, I have to make you understand some operations with the language. Okay, so let me rub this portion here. So as I said, a language, it is a set of string. So there may be different languages. For example, let's suppose L1 is one language, L2 is another language, L3 is another language. There may be different languages. Okay. Now let's take a language, or let's take some operations on language. So it is a simple concept here that we have to understand, operations on language. We know what is a language. A language is basically a set of strings. So what are the possible operations of on language? Meaning that all the operations that are possible on sets, those operations will be possible on language as well. So what are the operations? The main operations will be union of language. Second will be intersection of language. The third operation is the complement of a language. Complement. Fourth is set difference between language. Fifth is, so there are many others also, but we will only discuss some here. Another is concatenation of language. And the sixth is star operation. Okay. Let's take this alphabet. To understand these operations, let's take this alphabet 0, 1. Okay, so let's take one language, L1 is equal to 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. Okay, let's take another language, L2. Okay, let's take it 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Okay, let's understand these two. So union of two languages, L1 union L2, will be the set of all strings that are in L1 or in L2. So what will be union of L1 and L2? It will be 1 1 1 1 1 0 1 1 0 0 and 0 1. This will be the union. And what will be the intersection of two languages? The intersection of two languages will be the set of strings that are common to both. So what is an intersection here? 1. So what will be a complement? So the L1 complement, so it is written like this. L1 complement will be the set of all strings that are not in L1. So what are the possible strings? The possible strings are these, sigma star. Okay, so L1 complement will be all strings in sigma star except these strings. So that means all strings in sigma star excluding strings of L1. Okay, set difference. So let's say L1 minus L2. L1 minus L2 means all strings of L1 excluding strings of L2. So what are the strings of L1? Strings are 0 0 1 1 and 0 1. But we have to exclude the strings that are in L2. What are the strings in L2? 1 1. So we have to exclude this 1 1 0, it is not here, and 1 1 1. So this will be L1 minus L2. Then we have concatenation. Let's suppose I want to do concatenation of L1 and L2. Concatenation of two languages means concatenation of the strings. So 0 1 will be concatenated with 1 1, 1 1 0 and 1 1 1. 1 1 will be concatenate means mixing. So if we concatenate 0 with 1 1, the string will become 0 0 1 1. If we concatenate 0 0 0 with 1 1 0, it will be 0 0 1 1 0. So what will be the concatenation of L1 and L2? It will be 0 0 1 1 0 0 1 1 0 0 0 1 1 1. So we have concatenate first one, then we have to concatenate second 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 0 1 1 1 1 1, and the third will be 0 1 1 1 0 1 1 1 0 0 1 1 1. So this will be L1 dot L2. What will be L2 dot L1? L2 dot L1 will be, first we have to take L2 string. So it will be 1 1 0 0 1 1 1 1 1 1 0 1 and so on. So you have to understand L1 dot L2 is not equal to L2 dot L1. Okay, fine. So let me rub some space here to make some space available. So we have to understand one or two concepts here. For example, this is my string. Okay, so what is this empty string? If we concatenate empty string with any string, let's suppose S, the answer will be S. Okay, so S concatenate with sigma, the answer will be S. So if we concatenate this empty string with any language, the output will be a language. So concatenating this sigma with L1, what will be the answer? L1. That means 0 0 1 1 0. Okay, so concatenating sigma, concatenating empty string with any string gives that particular string. Fine. Now the last operation that we have to understand is the star operation. But before understanding the star operation, you have to understand, for example, if I have L1, okay, so I have L1 is my language here. So here we have L1 as 0 0 1 1 0 1. Fine. Now if I have to find L1 concatenation with L1, so what will be L1 concatenation with L1? So it will be 0 0 1 1 0 1 concatenation with 0 0 1 1 0 1. So it will be equal to 0 0 0 0 0 0 1 1 0 0 0 1 1 1 0 0 1 1 1 1 1 1 0 1 0 1 0 0 0 1 1 1 0 1 0 1. This will be L1 concatenation with L1. So L1 concatenation with itself. It is also written like this, L1 square. Fine. Now what will be L1 cube? L1 cube will be L1 concatenation with L1 concatenation with L1. So that will be L1 concatenation with L1 is L1 square dot L1. So what is L1 square? This is L1 square. So concatenate this with L1, it will give me L1 cube. And what will be L1 4? L1 4 will be L1 concatenation with L1 concatenation with L1 concatenation with L1. That will be same as L1 cube dot L1. Okay. What will be L1 0? What will be L1 0? L1 0 will be an empty set. Okay, you can write empty set or okay. So language raised to power 0 is 5. So sorry, here language 0 is not 5. Basically, language 0 will be an set with empty string. Okay, set with empty string. Fine. Other thing that you have to understand in this concatenation, as I said that concatenating empty string with any language will give the language. And concatenating the empty language means it does not contain any string. Concatenating it will, L will be an empty language. Why? Because concatenate, we have to concatenate something from here with L, but there is nothing here. So nothing can be concatenated. So it will give 5. And you have to understand that 5 is not equal to this. These two are not same. Phi is basically, it is the empty set. Empty set means it does not contain any string. So this is not an empty set. It contains one string and that string is epsilon, a string with length 0. Okay, so this is not equal to this. So you have to keep these things in mind. Concatenating empty string with language gives the language, and concatenating empty set with a language gives an empty set. Fine. Now, other thing is that phi. It is also a language because it is a set, but it does not contain any string. So what will be phi of 0? I have make you understood here that any language of 0 is this set. So phi of 0 is this set. Phi of 1, what will be phi of 1? Phi of 1 is empty. What is phi of 2? Phi of 2 is also empty. Only this phi of 0 is sigma. Now let's come to the star operation. So let's come to the star operation. So I hope you have understood these things here. Star operation. So if we have a language, let's say L1, if we have to find a star operation means L1 0 union L1 1 union L1 square dash 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 union L1. So it will be a star operation. Fine. So we have understood what is L1 1, what is L1 2, what is L1 n. Fine, that will be a star operation. Or in other words, we can say it is the set of all possible strings that can be created by concatenating strings of L1 n number of times. So the set of all strings that we can create by concatenating the strings of L1 in any manner, that will give us the star. Fine. Okay. So let me rub some portion from here to make some things clear. Fine. So we understood the star operation. So these are the 6 operations that we understood. But before concluding, you have to understand what will be phi star. Phi star will be phi 0 union phi 1 union dash 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 phi raised power n. Now phi raised power 0 is this string, and then this is empty. Everything is empty after that. So it will be this. Phi star will be this particular thing. Okay, a set containing only one string, that is the empty string. And this sigma star, empty star, it will also be empty, because concatenating empty string 100 or 1000 infinite number of times, it will be an empty string. Right? So let me summarize and end this particular course. So sorry, end this particular lecture here. So we have said that we have to discuss 2 things. One is an automaton, and the another is what is a problem. And for understanding this problem, we discuss the formal language theory. And we discuss what is a language and what are the operations possible on the language. Fine. Now we have to discuss the automaton. And in the automaton, as I said, that there are 2 different categories. One is finite automata, and the second is the Turing machines. From our next lecture, we will start discussion about the finite automata, and we will complete the discussion about the finite automata, and we will see what problems can be solved, or we can say on which language this finite automata will work, and on which language it won't be able to answer the question. And what was the question? The question was whether a string belongs to a language. Okay, and also we said some important points. The important points was that if we concatenate this empty with a language, it will be a language. If we concatenate phi with a language, it will be a phi. Phi star is this sigma. Okay, these are the things, these are some important points that you have to keep in mind. So with this, we will stop this particular video, and we will meet in the next lecture, that is lecture number 7, and we will start the automata theory in that particular video. So let's meet in the next lecture. Till then, goodbye.